Good day, gamers. Nismospoolin here, and today I'm going to give you a little tutorial on how to improve your game with a keyboard and mouse on Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and basically any first-person shooter game. And it doesn't have to just be Call of Duty, but that's the game I'm focusing on right now. This video will be good for anybody that's new to PC FPS games, or someone that's made the switch from controller to mouse and keyboard, or a player that's looking to sharpen their skills a little bit on mouse and keyboard. Call of Duty was originally designed for PC to begin with the first Call of Duty releasing for PC in October 29th, 2003. So whether you're brand new to mouse and keyboard, or you've been using this setup since you were about 5 years old, playing Doom like me, you can always come away with something from watching a video like this and learning different ways other people have had success. Being proficient on mouse and keyboard is a culmination of all different styles and play methods to create your own personal style. From how you hold your mouse, to where you place your keyboard, to how you sit in your chair, all of these little things come together at the end to make up who you are as a player, and it's important. If you feel uncomfortable, or you're having little success with the way that you're currently playing, try new things and see how you improve. For the sake of this video, let's assume that you've already found a mouse and keyboard that you want to use. We'll make a video later on going over picking the right mouse and keyboard for you, but for right now, let's just assume that you have what you want and you're really happy with it. To start out, I like to warm up at least 3 times a week on Kovac's Aim Trainer. It's a tool that you could buy on Steam for around 10 bucks, and it's basically an assetless game with a bunch of downloadable scenarios in which you can practice different things. There's single shot, flick training, tracking, movement, etc. And my weakest point is tracking, so I make it a point to practice that often. I try to mimic my in-game settings for whatever game I'm practicing for and go from there. The point of this is that you don't have to strive to be the best at it, it's just a warm-up. You can make mistakes, that's fine. If you're really trying to up your game and become more competitive, you can use OBS Studio to record your practice sessions in the Aim Trainer and go back and watch them. Break down where your weak points are and make changes to get better. A camera on the mouse hand is helpful too, so you can see what your hand is doing while you practice. I like to do this for about 15 to 20 minutes in the morning, so warm up and figure out what I'm going to work on for the day. Whether that be how I hold my mouse, or how I move my hand and arm, etc. Tools like this are great for improvement and practice, and I would argue essential for anyone trying to be more competitive. I find myself the most comfortable with my elbows resting on the desk and my keyboard far off to the top left and mouse in the middle right, to make the most room possible for my movements. With my keyboard so far away, I can easily lean in to focus on a target if I need to. And that being said, let's touch on focus a little bit. I'll make a more in-depth video later on about it, but for right now, we'll just gloss over it. There's 2 types of focus in FPS games, broad focus and tight focus. The best way to explain broad focus is to imagine you're looking at a colony of ants on the ground, marching away and doing whatever. Broad focus would be you being able to pan back and see all the ants, the hill, the grass around them, all moving and doing their thing all at the same time. Tight focus would be while still standing in the same place with your eyes fixated in the same area, you can hone in on one individual ant. You can see its head, thorax, legs, antenna, the works. And while playing an FPS game, you need to train your mind to be able to go between both of them when the situation calls for it. Playing an FPS game is not like driving a car where you're always aware of what's around you at all times. In an FPS, you need to be aware of everything that's around you at all times and focus in what's in front of you when time is right. But learning how to pan your focus accordingly is very important to upping your game in any FPS, just like Call of Duty. When it comes to gripping your mouse, there are 3 base styles. Palm grip, which is like this, with your palm resting down on the chassis of the mouse. Claw, where you stand your fingers up on the buttons and remove your palm from the mouse entirely. And fingertip grip, which is a healthy in-between of palm and claw. For FPS, I found that palm grip slows you down a lot and can cause unnecessary drag on the mouse. This style is more for relaxed games like MMOs, where you don't need to always be ready at a moment's notice to move. I found that while using palm grip, when it comes to a gunfight, I push down really heavily on my mouse, and it makes tracking very difficult. The more weight you put on your mouse, the harder it is to follow your target as it strafes about and moves. and you want to be able to change directions and flick about at the same speed as your enemy. For this reason, I tend to stay away from palm grip, and if you're currently using palm grip, you should retrain your hand to a more freestyle to better suit the game that you're playing. Claw grip is a common FPS mouse holding style, but it can be very difficult to get used to, and what I found is, the further your fingers are back on the buttons, the more force you have to use to click them. In a gunfight, every millisecond counts, and that's why I don't use claw grip myself, because the more further back it is, you have to push down even harder. And I want to put as little strain on my hand as possible. Fingertip grip is a nice hybrid between palm and claw where your hand is relaxed but still light on the actual mouse itself, with my fingers towards the ends of the mouse buttons, so I get the fastest click with the least amount of effort. My ring and pinky fingers support the mouse on the right and my thumb supports it on the left side, but they don't touch the mouse pad or lay flat on the mouse, so I can make micro adjustments mid-fight if needed. I've seen other players like Ninja use the 1-3-1 grip, which is index and ring finger on the main buttons here, and the middle finger on the scroll wheel. I don't personally like this style, because I feel like I have less control over the mouse, but some people like it, and they combine things to the scroll wheel like jump, and they're able to quickly jump multiple times with one scroll. I don't personally like it, some people do. I actually unbind the scroll wheel in most games. On top of how you hold the mouse, there are also different ways players move the mouse in wrist and arm players. Wrist players tend to play with a very high sensitivity, and I've seen it work in FPS games, but I don't recommend learning this way, since the tiniest movements can affect your aim drastically. High sensitivity players normally have very little room for their mouse or have very small mouse pad, and they're confined to very small spaces, so they have to adapt to that small space, and that's usually why they learn how to play like that. Arm players use their entire arm to move and adjust their mouse. Some games I play like this, mostly in BR games where I can be attacked from any angle at any time, and I need to turn around very quickly. But in a game like Call of Duty, I use a little bit of both in arm and wrist respectively. I have my DPI on my mouse set to 400, my polling rate is 1000, and my in-game sensitivity is 6.0. This I would consider a medium sensitivity, especially for me. Mouse movements feel meaningful and quick, and arm movements feel dramatic and effective. And in Call of Duty Modern Warfare, this is a quite important thing, since you're going to spend a good percent of your time looking forwards and left and right, and only turning completely around when you hear another player. The time to kill in this game is such a way that if someone comes up behind you and you don't hear it, it's already too late unless they miss. So you want to be able to focus most of your mouse movements onwards. Also, most players in Call of Duty move around a lot, making behind attacks less likely without hearing their movement first. But when you're just getting started using a mouse and keyboard, you want to put it more time into being comfortable with your equipment and less time in games where enemies and teammates can stress you out while you're trying to learn. That's why I recommended the aim trainer to begin with, so you have a nice judgment-free place to get the hang of things before you dive right into the game and get yelled at by an 11-year-old for feeding. Keep in mind that playing Call of Duty on PC is quite a different experience than on console, even with crossplay turned on. The way crossplay and matchmaking works in this game is if you're using a mouse and keyboard, you're either going to be matched up with other mouse and keyboard players or console players who play on a mouse and keyboard level. Watching a lot of Call of Duty console YouTubers, I see pretty much all of them playing against bottom-of-the-barrel controller kids and pub stomping them into the ground with ease. Calling nukes and mopping up shoot house with little to no opposition. Something that's important to note for anyone switching over to PC is that the level of player that you come up against is going to be much better than with crossplay on. They're more aware, they're faster, and they're better. Just the input presence of mouse and keyboard alone in matchmaking will eliminate a large chunk of the console player base right off the rip. So don't look forward to switching to mouse and keyboard, flip it on crossplay, and going to Pound Town on little Timmy who just got his first CoD for Christmas. It doesn't work like that. When you switch to PC, you're making a decision to use a harder to learn set of peripherals, and in return, you're rewarded by learning to be a better player overall. Crossplay is another subject I want to touch on another video, but for right now, we'll just say that Infinity Ward's matchmaking system leaves a lot to be desired despite whether you're a great player or a new player. Another thing to note while using mouse and keyboard is crosshair placement. On PC, you don't get the luxury of having aim assist in any form at all, since a mouse is much more precise and quicker to use than a controller. Even if you don't have an enemy in your crosshair, you want to make sure that you keep the little dot on the center of your screen at head level, so you can start any fight that may pop up with a headshot. Even if you're not confident that you're quite good enough to get headshots right off the rip, it's still a good habit to keep your crosshair at head level as often as you can. That way, as you get better at aiming and controlling recoil, you're already starting off the fight at a good place. And speaking of recoil control is much more important on mouse and keyboard. Instead of just pulling down on your mouse as you fight, you want to learn the pattern that the gun recoils and move your mouse in the counter fashion to that, so your grouping is nice and tight while you're fighting. But that's a whole different thing and for a whole different video, and we'll cover that another time. This has been my basic video on how to switch to mouse and keyboard to play Call of Duty. For more in-depth videos on how to use mouse and keyboard competitively, or more specific videos about improving how to play, subscribe with notifications on so you know when I make future videos about this topic. Give the video a like, plop a comment down below to help more people see it, and I'll catch you next time.